Welcome to Question Period Rewind. I'm Donna Skelly, Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. Today, a segment queued up from 1987, and that was a big year for TV shows. We saw the premiere of Star Trek: The Next Generation, Married with Children, and the family comedy Full House. But what was Ontario watching on this very TV channel? Let's take a look.
Oral questions? The Leader of the Opposition.
We'll be back there by then. We'll look after it. I have a question for the Treasurer, Mr. Speaker. I wonder if the Treasurer could reflect back to the conversation we had last week on the ad valorem switch off of ad valorem tax on gasoline, which has caused $500,000 a day more to be taken out of the motorists of Ontario. And I wonder if the Treasurer might today outline specifically what his aversion is to ad valorem taxes.
Treasurer?
Mr. Speaker, I think this is an appropriate time for a philosophical debate about tax measures, if the Honourable Leader of the Opposition wants to raise the matter. That it was our feeling, certainly, that the ad valorem tax, as it applied to gasoline, meant that the revenue earned from the tax was based on something other than the decision of this House and dependent only on the price of gasoline. Mr. Speaker, the honourable member will know that after the imposition of the ad valorem tax, at least during a part of the treasurership of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, that the tax more than doubled during that period. It was my feeling at the time as an opposition spokesman and later as Treasurer of Ontario that for gasoline taxes, it's more appropriate if a fixed tax, in this instance, I believe 8.3 cents per liter, would be attached to the sale of gasoline, and that the revenue then would be more readily projected and predicted, and that any change in that revenue would be only at the decision of the members of the Legislative Assembly acting on recommendation of the government of the day with the resolution and with the appropriate signature of His Honour the Governor. I don't apologize for that. I believe it's appropriate in the taxation of gasoline.
Supplementary?
Well, I think the key thing the Treasurer indicated was that his objection was that the tax was one which depended, and I quote him directly, I wrote down the words, dependent on the price of gasoline, and therefore the amount of taxation gathered would catapult up or sometimes drop depending upon the price of gasoline, and that you should come back to the House if you're going to get more revenue when that happens. Well, the Treasurer will know that he has precisely the same system for land transfer tax. That the land transfer tax is an ad valorem tax, just as the gasoline tax used to be. But there's one difference. The price of gasoline dropped this year, as everyone knew it would, and that would have produced lower revenues for the government. On the other hand, the Treasurer knew and knows today that the single item in society which is skyrocketing the fastest in terms of price is in fact the price of land. So when he found an opportunity to keep an ad valorem tax on an item which was increasing dramatically in price, thus increasing revenues, the Treasurer not only endorsed and kept that ad valorem tax, but of course he also increased the level of taxation.
The question is?
With a 20% increase in the tax itself.
Please.
My question to the Treasurer is this. How can he reconcile the fact that by dropping the ad valorem tax on gasoline, he effectively increased the tax on motors by $500,000 a day, and by keeping the ad valorem tax on land, he effectively, so far from his own figures, has increased the tax on people who buy land by $1.5 million per week?
Treasurer? Well, Mr. Speaker, I want to point out to you something that's obvious, and that is that these changes were approved by the majority vote of the legislature, and so there was nothing undemocratic about the approach. And frankly, I want to also point out two additional things. That it's not our policy, nor was it the policy specifically of the previous administration, to earmark funds. However, we must be aware that the costs of providing adequate transportation facilities has increased since the change in government because of award of more dollars for this purpose. And the same is also true in the costs of servicing land and new developments in many communities across Ontario, but I suppose most spectacularly in the greater metropolitan Toronto area, some of which areas are probably the fastest growing areas in North America. The honourable member, having been treasurer and being a sensible person in most instances, would know that the costs of these services and the planning associated with them, the provision of schools, the provision of roads, the provision of adequate electrical services, and the list goes on, is mounting very rapidly. That the honourable member would also be aware that we have a responsibility to pay for these services, and we have taken some tough and I suppose unpopular taxation decisions. The honourable member has repeatedly put a price tag of an additional $700 million per year on the tax changes that this government has brought in. That number, if anything, is conservative, and I don't suppose that's a pejorative adjective in this instance. We feel the money is required to properly fulfill our responsibilities.
Final supplementary.
Treasurer, let's be serious. Let's not plead poverty as if you need this money. You admitted after 6 months you had $400 million additional revenue. You admitted in this House last week that that was also a conservative estimate, that you will shortly be admitting that you have more than $400 million additional revenue. You have admitted yesterday in the House that the $100 million high-tech fund this year will spend less than $1 million, so you'll end up with $99 million additional money on top of the 400, on top of the excess you've indicated is yet to be announced, another $99 million. So let us not plead poverty when it comes to your great need to gouge the motorists of this province $500,000 a day, and the people who try and buy houses in this province by $1.5 million a week. Now, my question to the Treasurer is this. Given the enormous increase in revenues you have, given your admitted increase, unexpected, you said, of now at least $400 million plus more plus another $99 million, are you prepared to rethink your double standard on ad valorem taxes and get rid of your tax changes on gasoline, or perhaps save the homeowners of this province $1.5 million a week?
Mr. Speaker, the tax changes that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition has been criticizing so severely have not impeded the economic development and growth of the province in a most spectacular way. I don't take credit for that. I simply point out that the taxation policies and the economic policies of the government have not hindered this expansion, and that the revenue increases are welcome indeed. They simply mean that we are able to finance in a progressive and useful way a number of programs that have been seriously underfinanced in the past. I simply point out to the improved financing for education, both at the elementary and secondary level, as well as the post-secondary level. And I'm glad to report to the honourable member, if he hasn't noticed it, that we have really received a good many congratulations from those people who have been in receipt of these funds and who are perhaps more objective in assessing these matters than the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is.
Order. New question. Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, let it be recorded that the Treasurer thinks that an almost $1 billion tax increase doesn't adversely affect the growth of the economy.
Question to the Treasurer?
We'll talk about that sometime.
Question to the...
My question is to the Minister of Housing. The Minister of Housing will recall that when he took office, he immediately announced that he was going to look after the houses in Malvern that were located on radioactive soil. I wonder if the Minister could today tell us how he justifies a situation where instead of buying all of the 100 homes in that area, he's agreed to buy 40, and in some instances has decided to buy one half of a townhouse where the other townhouse immediately abutting and adjoining it, he has refused to buy. Is somehow the radioactive soil got such a careful demarcation that you're prepared to buy one home and leave the children and the families next door without the protection you offered?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member indicated about a situation that was outstanding for years by the previous government, and no one would have addressed that issue. They thought it was too controversial, but we addressed that and identified those homes that were, as indicated by scientists, knowledgeable people, where the level would indicate higher than normal, and they identified 40 of those homes. We went there and bought those. The 1.5 townhouse in which the honourable leader has indicated, I would have to look into that. I'm sure that maybe the other home that was not bought was the one that was not identified as being at the level that would be acquired by us.
Supplementary?
Well, Minister, these are your constituents. You did announce you were going to solve the problem. I have here the map of the houses you decided to buy and the ones you didn't. And you'll see there's lots of rows of townhouses, and in some cases, you just took one and left the other half unpurchased. You've got to be taking the position that if you live on this half of a 40-foot lot, the government ought to buy your home because the soil is radioactive and the children shouldn't be living there. And on the other adjacent house, you've decided that it's safe. To compound the problem, Minister, you have also put up for rent the house that you bought and invited another family to move into it.
Not safe for owners, but it's safe for tenants.
Now, my question for the minister is this. My question for the minister is this. You are now
It's a hot house deal.
on the one-half house that you decided was too unsafe to live in and therefore you bought. You are now advertising those houses for rent, and you are saying if people will just drop by and buy one of these radioactive soil houses, which you are happy to sell, a copy of the radiological survey will be available upon request.
Throw that in for nothing.
Is that your question?
Now, my question for the minister is, how can you justify this double standard in your own constituency, inviting families to move into houses that you had to buy because the soil was so radioactive?
Order.
Mr. Speaker, no double standard at all. The honourable member knows that we still, as a government, feel that those level of radiation is safe. And that, as I stated to you, that was given by scientists who are knowledgeable, not by my own conclusion, Mr. Speaker, by experts. As I said, these residents there, Mr. Speaker, had no option. We gave them an option. They had, and what we are saying, we had nothing to hide. We made available to them the results that was available to us, so they can make that decision. And we're still maintaining that it is safe. Now, Mr. Speaker, the type of a logic that the honourable leader of the opposition is indicating is that we should also buy those adjoining lots behind those soil that has a low reading. Is the members then saying, Mr. Speaker, that we should buy all those, not 40, but maybe the 80, and where do we stop from that? We identify
Final
those that show
supplementary.
a higher rate.
Order.
Yes, I want to say
Final
to the minister
supplementary.
what our position is. Our position is that you bought 40 of the homes in this subdivision. Most of the homes you bought are now empty. Most of the other people can't get any price for their home because you haven't bought their home, and they're living in the middle of a vacant, deserted subdivision thanks to your purchase and thanks to what you have done. And I'm saying you've left the other 60 totally abandoned and without protection. Now, I want to ask the minister this question. In response to this ad in the newspaper, we did indeed send someone over to visit the government, and we asked for a copy of the radiological survey for, of course, houses you're prepared to rent and say have no danger. And this is what the government officials told our people. They said that the reports contained, quote, technical jargon that we as prospective purchasers, quote, really wouldn't be able to understand it, and anyway, quote, you really don't need it.
Resign.
Is that your...
Resign.
Now, my question to the minister is, how can you explain leaving 60 homeowners living in the middle of an abandoned subdivision, reducing the price of their homes, and then for the people who go in and try and rent the houses that you've already declared are unsafe, tell them that it's too technical, they really wouldn't understand it.
Mr. Speaker, I'm just happy, Mr. Speaker, that it's about time that that party decided to send someone over to investigate it. For years you sat there, did nothing, and then you are saying now, and then he's saying, Mr. Speaker, because we addressed the problem, gave those residents an option in which to move, and give them all of those options. You sat on it for years, and we acted on it. We still maintain that the soil is safe. Again, Mr. Speaker, the reason why we gave those individuals the option, we felt that they had no way to go because they feel that depressed their price. We bought those. Mr. Speaker, you know, it's the same attitude they used when they investigated the radioactive soil. They did not listen to the residents there. They listened to no one. They don't even want to hear the answer now, Mr. Speaker. We acted, and we will continue to act.
New question. Order. 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 New question, the member for York South.
We should bring back Tom Wells to mediate this dispute, Mr. Speaker. Here. My question I also have a question to the Minister of Housing. I wonder if the Minister of Housing can explain why John Woodford, who's a tenant in Oakville at 1229 Marlborough Court, under Bill 51, is going to have to pay an 18.1% rent increase beginning March the 2nd because his rental increase notice was given on December the 2nd, 1986. Can you tell that, Mr. Woodford, why he's been told by your ministry that regardless of what the rental review hearing ultimately finds, he has to, legally, up front, pay an 18.1% increase on March the 2nd? Why does he have to do that?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member identified a situation where that I presume the case you're talking about would be individuals who are in a post-1975 building and were never covered under the rent review process before. And the notice that that individual got was before the 31st of December, 1986. So therefore, that the notice that he was given is to say that the increase would be 18.1, as you said, he would have to pay that. And as soon as that landlord makes his application for that increase, and be heard by the Rent Review Hearings Board, then the landlord would have to justify that increase, Mr. Speaker. The other point that you raised, that why should he be paying that, is that he himself, Mr. Speaker, if the rate which has been established, the guideline 5.2, he would be, if he does not get an increase in that Rent Review Hearings Board, then the money will be refunded to the tenant, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, perhaps if the minister is happy to justify Mr. Woodford having to make an interest-free loan to his landlord, which is part of the deal which you and Bill Grenier have signed. No wonder Bill Grenier is smiling all of the way to the bank. You've given it all away to him. Perhaps you can also explain to the tenants who live, mainly seniors, the 25 tenants who live at 82 Millside Drive in Milton, Ontario, who have also received notices of an increase in late 1986, with the rent increases taking effect in the first 3 months of 1986. Are you saying to those senior citizens who live in that building that they, in effect, have to make an interest-free loan to their landlord simply because you're not prepared to stick up for tenants? Is that the reason they have to pay that interest-free loan to the landlord?
Not at all, Mr. Speaker. To say that we protected the tenants, and we bring about a very fair rent review process, it was agreed on by the landlord and tenant that would be the case, because there would be other cases, Mr. Speaker, where a tenant where an application would be made by the landlord for an increase, and then the landlord could have claimed basically that if interest would be due on the money, that would be owing to the landlord. It was agreed, Mr. Speaker, by the landlord and tenant that this would be the situation. I think it's a one-time basis. I don't think this would happen again. It's because of this new law coming in at this time that it could put those tenants in that kind of a position.
Final
Let's explain to tenants then exactly what's happening, because your ministry is so confused that at one point one of your officials advised tenants to phone Mr. Revel, our housing critic, because they thought he might have a better idea as to what the law actually said than they did. I'd like to,
They were right.
And they were right about that, but I'd like to ask the minister this question. Is what the minister's saying, do we understand him to say is this: if a landlord in a post-1976 building simply wants to get a hold of some cheap, quick money, interest-free, all he has to do with respect to a rental increase prior to the increase being set by the rent review hearing is go to his tenants and say, all right, pay 25 or 30 or 35 or 40% up front, and you have to pay it or I'll give you an eviction notice, and that's what many landlords, in fact, are saying to their tenants. Is that what, does the minister not appreciate the injustice of what is going on? And can he tell us why he won't bring in a speedy amendment to Bill 51, which we will pass in 24 hours, to see that tenants are protected from this kind of liberal rip-off, which you yourself are sponsoring?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would hope that the honourable member understands this, that a notice that is given for an increase doesn't necessarily say that tenant has to pay. The landlord, Mr. Speaker, would have to then make a representation to the Rent Review Hearings Board for that increase. And you know, too, and the honourable member also knows, that that landlord would have to justify that increase. And also, too,
Order.
that tenant would have to be residing in a post-1975 building. He cannot in himself, Mr. Speaker, just get up and just give a notice like that. That increase has to be justified in the Rent Review Hearings Board.
New question, the member for York South.
The minister is to be charitable, misinformed, but no doubt he will be hearing more about this. I have a question for the Minister of the Environment. Minister will be aware of a spill which took place in the St. Clair River on Monday of 500,000 liters of chemically polluted excess from CIL. Can the minister explain why the Ministry of the Environment failed to notify either the public officials in Wallaceburg or the public in Wallaceburg of the presence in the river of a chemical plume that was passing by their water supply?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I recall seeing a report on that, and it was my understanding that, in fact, there had been notification given in that particular incident. The member seems to have some different information, but certainly that was my understanding, and that, in fact, there was a shutdown of the intake of the plant while the plume went by. This was my understanding of it from a report I have. Perhaps the member has other information that he'd like to share with me. I'd be pleased to investigate.
Supplement.
Just so the minister will know exactly what happened, the town engineer was informed, and the Water Commission was informed, and that's why, in fact, as he has stated, the intake was affected. But the minister should know that that publicly elected officials in Wallaceburg were not informed, councillors were not informed, and the general public was not informed in Wallaceburg. So those are the facts of the situation. By way of supplementary, Mr. Speaker, I wonder if the minister can tell us why he has yet to reach a decision with a problem which he has been on his desk for well over a year, and that is with respect to the construction of a new pipeline so that the residents of Wallaceburg will no longer be dependent upon water from the St. Clair River. You use the excuse of going to the feds when you know the feds aren't going to kick in the money. I'd like to ask the minister, when are the citizens of Wallaceburg going to get action from the government of Ontario with respect to their water supply and the building of a new pipeline?
In fact, as the leader of the third party would know, the province has indeed given a commitment to participate financially in this project, and it has. I mean, you'll have to get your facts correct, the leader of the third party. We have given that commitment. I was in Wallaceburg, announced that particular commitment. I simply indicated that in the portion that would be the responsibility of the municipality, that if they wish to have the federal government alleviate part of that portion, that they were welcome to discuss this with the federal government, and I would certainly support them in that regard. But there is a commitment on the part of the provincial government to do so, and I really don't know why the member is suggesting that there isn't.
Final supplementary, the member for Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the minister what has become of all his grand promises about a drinking water strategy for this province. In November 1985, when I introduced the Safe Drinking Water Act, the minister indicated that he was going to do something to put some legislation in place that would require notification of people when their drinking water is being contaminated, so that the citizens could make their own decision as to whether or not the drinking water was safe and whether or not they should drink it. Can the minister explain why there has been no action on his part to legislate for safe drinking water in the province of Ontario?
Minister?
I guess the member feels, and she's entitled to this particular opinion, that legislation will necessarily produce for the province of Ontario safe drinking water. The strategy that we have adopted is to ensure that, first of all, we get at some of the sources of contamination that exist around the province, and we are aggressively pursuing those sources of contamination. And I think the member agrees that that's one important component of dealing with those kinds of issues, and relating it specifically to her leader's question, because I know she'd want it to be a supplementary. In addition to that, we have promised and delivered on the promise a surveillance program which continues to test the water to determine whether or not there are contaminants, and if there are, to what degree those contaminants would be in the water. In addition to this, the province, through the Ministry of the Environment, has initiated a plant optimization program, which in fact calls for an improvement not only in the equipment that is used in these water treatment plants, but also in the training of staff who operate them, so that we can get the maximum efficiency out of them. And so right across the province of Ontario, we are doing so. And it is the responsibility of the Ministry of the Environment, Mr. Speaker, to provide that information. We're always prepared to do so.
Question? The member for Brantford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question, Mr. Speaker, is to the Premier. Mr. Premier, this week when the Treasurer announced to the House that the Exploracom commitment would not be met by your government, he said that the Cabinet decision had been based on external reviews. That on external review, it was found that even if the private sector did come up with $17.5 million, that it was felt this would not be sufficient and more government funding in excess of the $17.5 would be required. We're mystified as to why this was not evident to the Premier, Mr. Speaker, when the announcement was made last year. We wonder if you would share with the House the nature of the external review, who conducted it, at what cost, and are you prepared to table it before the House?
Premier?
I think that we've discussed these matters before, and we have shared them with the honourable member opposite. As we said, there were many external reviews on the situation. There were lawyers and accountants and others looking at the situation. We came to the conclusion we did. I'm not sure how we could further elucidate the member on the question. Are you in favor of it? Are you against it? Or are you in favor of getting into it or getting out of it? Or what is your position on the matter?
Mr. Speaker, by way of supplementary. The issue is, Premier, through you, Mr. Speaker, is because of your colossal mishandling of this matter, based on the fact that there are now 42 employees of Exploracom talking about lawsuits, this matter could and possibly will end up costing the taxpayers money. We believe the members of this House have a right to know the basis on which the original commitment was made and the basis on which it was reneged. The Premier may not think this is necessary to share with the House. We believe it is. Will you table the external reviews?
Premier, I think that you asked, as I recall, going from memory, you asked for a lot of information that was provided before. There's a great deal of information has gone on and shared with this House over the entire matter, and we've shared that with you. No particular secret, as the Honourable Treasurer said some time ago. It appeared from a base of external review that the information led us to the conclusion that it was not forthcoming in the short term, and it also we could run into operating difficulties as well. And that's why we made the decision that we did, and we're quite comfortable making it.
New question. The member for Riverdale.
Question for the Minister of Housing. See if we can deal with the obfuscation here. I want to go back to the poor people in Milton and Millside Towers. I want the Minister to understand what he is allowed to have happen to those tenants. On December the 31st, 1985, those tenants were paying $500 a month. On January the 1st, 1987, the Minister has required them to pay $632.50 a month, compounded. That's 26.5% increase. In a situation where he said it was going to be 4% in 86 and 5.2 in 87. By the time we have a rent review hearing and perhaps an appeal, those tenants will have given their landlord, interest-free, for 21 months, the sum of $132.50 a month.
And as your question, does the Minister agree?
My question to the Minister is there any possible way he can justify such absurdity in view of his comments about wanting to protect the tenants of Ontario?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, when Bill 51 came about, it was to address and to include all tenants in private units, rental units across the province. Those rental units that were post-1975, as the honourable member knows, were not on the rent review process. We indicated very clearly that we will include the post-75 retroactive to the 1st of August 1985, and those will be paying 4% until we could get the Bill 51 through. And as you know, in our democratic way, we went around the province and heard from all sides and said that the next guideline of the rent review will be plugged into related to inflation, and that was announced previous to 87 for 5.2. Mr. Speaker, those tenants that are, as the honourable members say, would have paid an increase from whatever the interest rates that you had the percentage rate that you had indicate there, will be retroactive when they go before the Rent Review Hearings Board, will be looked at 4% from the 1st of August 1985, and also 5.2. If that landlord, and I will make, if that landlord can justify an increase over and above that, then that will be done. If not, Mr. Speaker,
supplementary,
the money will be refunded.
Supplementary.
My supplementary to the Minister is this, Mr. Speaker. How does the Minister imagine he is going to be able to find the people currently living in Millside Towers to tell them that he has protected them when they are going to be economically evicted? Does he know a senior citizen who has had a 26.5% increase in their income since December 31st, 1985? Why is he condoning the economic eviction of tenants in this province?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, if I was condoning an economic eviction, I would not make the legislation retroactive for 4%. If that was the case, Mr. Speaker, we would not make a guideline that is sensitive to inflation. Again, Mr. Speaker, the notice those tenants had gotten in December 31st is 90 days, so no money would be then expended from their pocket until 90 days thereafter. It's only a peculiar situation, Mr. Speaker, that only those tenants that got notice in December, those tenants that have gotten after January the 1st, Mr. Speaker, would not be in that position. This is not an economic eviction. It's a sensational way by the third party. It is behaving to scare those tenants. We have put a rent review process in to protect tenants.
New question. New question, the member for Brampton.
Mr. Speaker, I was speaking with one of the assistants to the member from Sudbury East, and it was drawn to my attention that a number of the constituents in my riding of Brampton are being ticketed by the police because of the lack of parking facilities for the GO Transit facility in downtown Brampton.
And the question is to which minister?
Brampton is probably one of the largest growing areas in the province, and accordingly I'd like to direct a question to the Minister of Transportation and Communication as to what steps, if any, might be anticipated with reference to obtaining further parking space for constituents of mine who park at the downtown GO service.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the member from Brampton's ongoing concern for the provision and enhancement of service by the GO station, by the GO service. I was apprised by our friend from Sudbury East about some tickets to his friends or probably staff over the lunch hour. The problem, Mr. Speaker, is one similar to other stations along the GO service, and that is one of the growing use of that service by the public in Ontario. Some of these problems have been managed to be rectified, and I would assure the member for Brampton, Mr. Speaker, that I would take it upon myself to deal with the officials from GO and see if we can't, as quickly as possible, remedy the problem that he has raised.
Just don't put it on your...
New question. The member for Brantford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question again to the Premier. Mr. Speaker, we are not at all satisfied on this side of the House with the answer the Premier has given. I'm going to ask the same question again. You have staff and resources at the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Technology totaling some $200 million. Apparently, those resources were not sufficient for your government to come to a decision about the Exploracom project, so you undertake an external review at further public expense, and you are not prepared to table that review in the House. Will the Premier not live up to his commitment to open government and table that report?
Premier.
Our decisions with you, we share our thinking with you on these particular matters. We've done that in the past, we'll do it in the future. You know and I know that government operates on the basis of advice from a variety of people. When it makes its decisions, you're welcome to scrutinize it, look at it any way you want to. Take it to committees, do whatever you like. No particular problem. We are very mindful of our responsibilities to protect the public purse, and we are doing that. And I can tell you that this government is not afraid to make some of the tough decisions that we have to make. We're not going to get involved in another Menachie Lodge situation. I mean, we spent half of our time cleaning up messes that you created. Had you used a little more judgment, we wouldn't have to do it.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the absence of any better information, which the leader of the open Liberal government of Ontario refuses to share with this House, we are left with the ongoing impression that you, as the leader of the government, precipitously made the decision to fund a $17.5 million commitment for a project led by a personal friend of yours. You know how this looks, and yet you refuse to share the substantive information with this House. Does the Premier not understand this is unacceptable, it's disgraceful, and he should bring the information before the scrutiny of all the members of this House immediately?
Right now. When are we going to get it?
New question. Order. 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 Will the member for Brantford take his seat? New question. The member for Hamilton West.
Pretty
On a point of order.
On a point of order, we did not hear the Premier's answer to the member's question.
Yes, he did.
So I assume that we are to assume that there is no external review.
Exactly.
That's order. It's not a point of order. Order. There's nothing in the standing orders that says that anyone has to answer a question. The new order. 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 Would the honourable members allow the member for Hamilton West to ask a question? The member for Hamilton West.
Monsieur le Président, question pour le ministre de
Question is
l'Éducation.
for the Minister of
Ce matin,
Education.
j'ai lu
This
le
morning,
rapport du
I read the raw report which proposed a Board of Education for the Ottawa-Carleton region. We New Democrats want to reassure the Francophone community that we support this.
Recognizes, as I'm sure he must, that this is a major and complex undertaking with many possible consequences, not least of them financial for the many boards involved. I want to ask him, will he introduce legislation in the coming spring session which will follow the implementation timetable of the Commission, and will he assure us now that he will provide not only the financial necessities to provide equality of education for the French students of the new board, but also that special financial assistance that will be necessary to the other boards to enable them to make the transition without loss to their programming for their students?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member from Hamilton West for his question and drawing the attention of the House to the release today in Ottawa of the report of the Ottawa-Carleton French Language Education Advisory Committee, which committee has tabled a series of recommendations representing advice to the government. I can assure the honourable member that I have this week received the report. I have read it carefully. I will be, over the course of the next while, analyzing the several recommendations with officials from within my department. I can assure the honourable member that this government is very serious about its commitment to establish in the Ottawa-Carleton area a French language board for the fall of 1988. That will obviously require legislation. I hope to, at a point not too far in the future, introduce that legislation in this House, so that all members and the community will have the opportunity to assess very carefully this very important and historic initiative that this new government is taking with respect to this critical question of French language education in the National Capital Area. And I'm sure the honourable member will want to join me at that time for a full and open discussion of the bill and its many ramifications.
Supplementary, the member for Ottawa Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask the Minister, given that the committee has underlined the financial problems that will be created for some boards in the area now that the Francophone board will be established, I'd like to ask again the question asked by the member from Hamilton West. What kind of financial commitment can we look for in the Ottawa-Carleton area that can mean that the remaining boards are going to be viable? And how is he going to be providing information and reassurance to the people of Ottawa-Carleton on the financial question, when in fact there doesn't seem to be a specific recommendation coming out of the advisory committee report?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, through you to my friend from Ottawa Centre, I can say that the specific how of this matter as to how we will create a French language board in Ottawa-Carleton for the fall of 1988 will be worked out over the coming months, taking into account the advice of the Learned Committee, which has reported today, and of course taking into account the very important and I expect constructive advice of the honourable member from Ottawa Centre, from Hamilton West, and from all others in this Assembly and outside who have an important and significant interest and involvement in this very timely matter of public policy.
New question. The member for Scarborough Centre.
Speaker, I'm glad to see that the Minister of Education acknowledged that a major report was issued today. It seems that this is the new tact of the government that has openness and no windows to announce brand new major initiatives anywhere in this House so that questions can't be asked. But, Mr. Minister, I do have a question for you. The first recommendation of this committee, and I would like to read it to you in the records. The committee recommends that the Ottawa Carleton French Language School Board have two sections, a Roman Catholic section and a public section. Mr. Minister, do you support that recommendation?
Minister?
Let me say at the outset, Mr. Speaker, that I appreciate the honourable member from Scarborough Centre's recognition that this government is an open government with no walls and no barriers. That, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that testimony is in sharp contrast to what it is the Hamilton Spectator reports today about the leader of the Ontario Conservative Party. Because the Hamilton Spectator reports today, Mr. Speaker, that the leader of the opposition is prepared to, quote, tell Hamilton doctors how to handle Elston, but, quote, only in private with nobody present from the media. I want to say to my friend from Scarborough Centre that that is not the kind of open-door policy that we believe in this government. Mr. Speaker, I say to my friend from Scarborough Centre, Mr. Speaker, that the report today contains some 74 recommendations, all of which are interesting and important and will be very, very carefully assessed by the minister and by the government as we go forward now in the coming months in a consultative way to put in place a French language board in the National Capital Area for 1988.
Supplementary, the member for Carleton Grenville.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Although the Minister of Education refused to answer my colleague's question, he managed to put the major recommendation 1, in his press release. According to this report, Mr. Minister, the number of trustees that will be elected in each of the two sections, the Roman Catholic section and the public section, will be determined by the number of Francophone electors who opt for one section or the other. Suffice to say, one group will be represented by more trustees than the other. The report goes on to say that the combined group will decide on the jurisdiction of the sections and the whole board. Why would the majority of the board delegate any power to the underling section if, in fact, they were then taking away from what the majority could do to either side of the sections?
Minister, question.
My question is,
order.
How can this
Order. Would the honourable member take his seat? The question was asked very clearly.
Pretty funny, actually. That's pretty funny. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to my friend from Manotick that I appreciate his interest in this report. As one of the members from the National Capital Area, I know that he will, like all others in the Assembly, want to look very carefully, as I will be looking in the coming weeks, at the report in whole and in specific. We are going to take the advice tendered by the commissioners into consideration, but as we move forward in the coming weeks to prepare the legislation, I can assure the honourable member that we will take into account these recommendations and advice that will be tendered by many others in the community, and not too many weeks or months hence, we will be introducing as a government a bill into this Assembly which will hopefully address a number of the concerns that the honourable member and others have very properly raised here today, the day of the tabling of the so-called Roy Committee report.
New question, the member for Hamilton West.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question on another subject for the Minister of Education. This morning I received from his ministry word that his ministry, through its Learning Materials Development Grant Committee, had not recommended, had opposed, in fact, the granting of monies, support monies to the film group that is documenting the travels across this country of the SAGE, the Students Against Global Extermination group, which has been so effective in our high schools. I want to say, first of all, I regret that, and I want to call the minister's attention to a very recent study by Dr. Ross Parker of McMaster, which documents that in students in 20 communities across this country in secondary schools, the only matter that is of which they fear more than that of nuclear extermination and nuclear war is that of their own parents' death. Everything else is much subsidiary to that. Could I ask the minister, in the light of the seriousness of this question, in the eyes of young people themselves, can he not find in his ministry some other vehicle for finding some support for documenting a very valuable tool which can be used in the classrooms of this province and this country with those young people in their concerns?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member has raised this issue with me privately. I want to indicate to him that certainly as Minister of Education and on behalf of the government, I feel very strongly that our school system has a very important role to play in ensuring that our young people are properly schooled in these very important matters. A great deal has been done and is currently being done. I will take the honourable member's suggestion under active consideration and look very seriously at what might be done to respond to his particular request. I don't have the file with me to which he makes specific reference about the Learning Development Fund, but I will look to see whether it might be possible to address this specific matter in some other fashion and report back to him personally in the very, very near future.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the minister undertaking that task, and I look forward to hearing from him shortly. It was not long ago, in fact early last fall, that reports came to us of a third board in the province, just a third, developing a major curriculum unit on the question of nuclear awareness. Ottawa and the Toronto boards have done that, and I think Kitchener, at least the Waterloo board, regional boards, is the third board to undertake that task. At that time, the minister indicated that he would be monitoring the project carefully and was looking forward to the possibility of recommending that program to other boards in the province. When I asked the minister whether he has in fact monitored that program, whether he is now actively in the process of seconding it to other boards with his strong recommendation for their use.
We have been monitoring that program. I can't, in the here and now, give an immediate report to the honourable member about. Well, I'm glad to see my friend from Nickel Belt participating, albeit parenthetically, in this question period, Mr. Speaker. I will, however, undertake to again report. Well, I don't know why it is the New Democratic Party in this Assembly or elsewhere in this province is worried about the hereafter. Are they, Mr. Speaker, concerned about the next consultation? I know I was in Chelmsford and Chapleau recently, and I want to say to the honourable member from Nickel Belt, Mr. Speaker.
You have a response?
Undertake to report back to him on the particular and current status of our monitoring of that particular program.
New question. The member for Simcoe Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Assured Housing. Mr. Minister, according to a recent news report, the 120 units allocated for the City of Barrie under your Renterprise program have been taken off the market, resulting in the loss of 48 low-income housing units in the important community in my riding. With a 0% vacancy rate in the City of Barrie, we simply cannot afford to lose any new units. Can the Minister confirm or deny the allocations made in this radio report this week?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, Barrie's an area that really is suffering terribly on for the vacancy rate that is extremely low. And I know how difficult it is in that area. We're trying our best, Mr. Minister, Mr. Speaker, to address the issue of the getting affordable rental units there. The Renterprise program, I can't report to you immediately. I presume those that were taken off, I'm not quite sure if they're able to meet the criteria. I don't know why. If you want me to report directly to you, I can look into it and get back to you on those specific programs.
Supplementary?
Mr. Speaker, well, I'm sure the residents of Barrie will be completely assured by that response, Mr. Minister. They'll sleep comfortable tonight. But it doesn't explain why the real estate agents in Barrie are actively seeking buyers for this new apartment unit. Perhaps the Minister should review the status of this project again And in the meantime, perhaps, Minister, you can tell me how you intend to replace the 8 OHC units on Glen Hill Drive in Barrie that have also been taken off the market due to the complete failure of your assured housing program in my community. The 310 needy families on the waiting list for subsidized housing in Barrie would appreciate knowing the answer, Mr. Minister.
Minister?
Again, Mr. Speaker, for the specific 8 cases that have been taken off Barrie, I could get back to you. I could tell you the reason why they were taken off. I don't know. That report I could get back to the honourable member. But I'd like to tell the honourable member, though, that our assured housing policy have brought about much more assured housing for many, many people who are in the waiting situation for years and years. And for years to come, we will satisfy quite a few of those who will be waiting.
New question, the member for Hamilton East.
Question of the Minister of Health. The Minister of Health will be aware that the steering committee of the Hamilton Regional Occupational Health and Safety Centre, headed up by the President of Local 1005, the Safety and Health Committee of the local, the Labour Council, and endorsed by the OFL, made a detailed submission to your government on the 5th of July, 1985, for funding for such a clinic. That there has been no action on this, and in spite of many letters since and phone calls to both your ministry and the Ministry of Labour. I'm wondering if the Minister can give us some indication and give the workers involved some indication as to when they will hear further about the funding of that clinic in Hamilton.
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman indicated that a detailed submission was made to our government. I'm not sure whether it was directed to me. I can check into what has happened with respect to that application. I can tell the honourable gentleman that I cannot tell him the status of it at this moment, but that I will take every extend every effort to find out where that application is and what the status is within my own ministry and within the ministry of my colleague, the Minister of Labour.
Supplementary?
Well, I don't want to be provocative, Mr. Minister, but back at the end of August, your colleague, the Minister of Labour, and there has been a dispute all along as to who they should be dealing with, informed the President of Local 1005 that he would arrange a meeting with the 2 ministries and any other appropriate people within a matter of a short period of time. That was the end of August. There has not been a word since from the ministry. And that's one of the reasons why I'm saying, can you be a little more definitive as to when they're going to hear something from one of the 2 ministries?
Mr. Speaker, I can tell the honourable gentleman that my interest is very high in undertakings of this sort, but that under our current legislative framework, we have an obligation to share responsibilities with other ministries when there are some rather unique requests for funding opportunities as setting up programs which border on the 2 ministries. We can coordinate our efforts on these types of matters, and I will extend my efforts to coordinate our response. I cannot tell you with respect to what communications occurred from another minister at another time, but I can tell you that my contact with the Honourable Minister of Labour, Mr. Speaker, will be done as soon as he returns from his operation, and we will communicate jointly and directly with the member from Hamilton East with respect to the status, and we will hopefully then pick up on the communications which occurred in August just past.
New question. The member for York Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relations. Why doesn't the Minister institute a cooling-off period for new home buyers when they buy a new home?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for his question. The reason that I wouldn't is that I would have a lot of builders who would try to lynch me if I did that. You are addressing a problem that is only happening in a very, very few areas. There are other areas in Ontario where builders are trying to sell their homes, they're trying to pay their mortgages, pay off their loans, and are very anxious to sell those houses. And what you're suggesting is a problem that affects a very, very small number of people, and we are addressing that problem, but I think that it would be considerable overkill if we took your route on a normal house sale.
Supplementary?
Mr. Speaker, I don't know where you're going to get lynched, because around here in this fine house, no one would ever even think of being so physical. But may I suggest that
No.
I'm glad to hear it.
I would like to know then, in view of the fact that there is a 10-day cooling-off period for condominium buyers, for a person who buys a condominium, they at least then have 10 days to cool off, think about it, consult with their lawyer, work out the process of the decision with other people to make sure the decision is right. Why, when you can do it for a condominium owner, a person who's buying a condominium, why can't we also have something like a 10-day cooling-off period for a person who makes the largest investment in their lifetime in buying a new home? Why can't you do the same thing for them?
Minister?
Well, the member will know that when you're purchasing a condominium, you're into a different situation. You have a situation where you have to wait for registration. There is a possibility that the condominium may never, ever get registered, and then you're confronted with a situation where you're renting instead of buying. We have a situation now where we are in a very hot market in certain areas of Ontario, not in all areas, and we are addressing that problem. I think, and if you see what's been happening the last couple of weeks since we made our announcement, with the advent of the new provisions under the new home warranty program, with the initiatives that have been put into effect by the building industry itself, I think that we are resolving most of the problems. I'm sure there's still a couple out there, but by and large, we are addressing most of the problems, and I think it's working quite well.
Time for oral questions has expired.